Ready then?
Yes.
All right.
You were live.
Call the meeting to order at 7:07 p.m. And any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, I have an addition. It's a resolution to appoint you as Vice Chairman, Scott Longton, of the Grosseal Police Commission. All right, and really with a plan to transition you to the chairperson position by the end of the year.
Okay.
I can read the resolution. Do we have a second? That's a motion, I guess. Can we have a second to add that?
So before I was just going to point out that did we want to wait and push it off just one more meeting until we have Paul and Jeff present for this and add it to the next agenda? Yeah,
we could do that. Wouldn't be a bad idea because, I mean, Paul and I talked about it. And
right. I would just I just bring that up just because with only 3 of you here, technically Scott's voting on himself, which could be construed as slipping something in without the other 2 members.
No, I think you're right. I think we probably should put, it's a little surprise that Paul's not here, to all of us, Paul included. Okay. So, I think it's probably the wise and prudent thing to do.
Okay. Any other additions or deletions to the agenda then?
No.
With that, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the meetings of the March 16th regular and closed session minutes?
Yes.
Any additions, deletions, or corrections of those minutes?
None for me.
So I see the regular meeting minutes. I didn't see the closed session meeting minutes.
I was told that you guys don't look at the closed meeting. It's
typically they're just sealed away for a year, right?
I already took them to the township seal.
Okay.
Good.
Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the March 16th, 2021 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Monthly report.
Good evening. I'm going to give you a screen share here. Let's start off with a positive note. This is in reference to a letter I received this week. This is talking about Officer Delpiez. Officer Delpiez was just on patrol. She noticed a citizen that was mowing his lawn. He had some problems with the mower. It was an elderly citizen. Long story short, the wiring from one of the utility lines ended up going around his motorized lawn cutting implement, and Officer Delpiez stopped to render aid. She ended up using bolt cutters to remove the cabling and then notified the utility company to rectify the problem. The gentleman was overwhelmed with the police department's assistance. He was concerned that he was going to have his tractor taken to the local repair shop and incur an expense. So going above and beyond the call of duty on another one of our officers' responses just on a regular routine patrol. So I want to give a great job to Officer Susan Delpiez for assisting a citizen again, and just it was unsolicited. It was just something she observed and took action. So great job. The next thing I want to bring to the board, Commission's attention is that Officer AJ Benson, he's going to be going to the next basic SWAT school, which is next month for the month of May, 23rd through the 29th. He's the one officer that's on our team at this point. He'll be going through exercises. He has been part of the SWAT team for the last several months, but this will give him all of the necessary training to get him up to optimization for the downriver SWAT team, but then any response to Grozio that we may have. So just be aware of that. The next thing I wanted to highlight was the LPR pole, which is at the Free Bridge. DPS has been working with Charles Rains Engineering to get the infrastructure in place by designing the foundation, and then the pole, which we already have in some of the cross beams, cross members. They're going to be designing that system so that we can give the plans to Wayne County for their approval and for the implementation of that system. So that is in the works. That was a question that came up during one of the last commission meetings. So that's where we are at with replacing the pole and getting that infrastructure back in place that's changed since they implemented the new initial small bridge overpass to the Free Bridge. I want to go to the get you a screen share here. This is our arrest report with the Detective Bureau. We took in 37 complaints for the month of March. 6 were assigned to the Detective Bureau. They cleared 5. Lieutenant Pellin, if you wanted to go over, if you would please, some of the complaints that we had for the month of February.
Or you can see
March.
There was only 6 that were assigned to the Detective Bureau, but they were a variety of in nature. You see an animal control complaint there where one dog attacked another dog, ultimately bit a 13-year-old. We had a assault that took place between siblings, an MDOP, a larceny of a bicycle. We had a discharge of a firearm. A young adult discharged a handgun. One of the rounds went into a neighbor's couch. The bullet was found, but the resident of the damage chose not to prosecute in lieu of restitution. So a variety of different cases that our DB experienced over the month, with 37 total complaints coming in, which is about par for us. We usually average between 35 and 40. So just a variety of different complaints.
Moving forward to the overtime, as you can see, a comparison from March of 2020, 157 hours for the month of March, and compared to March of 2021 at 141. The overall comparison from year to year, 2019 to 2020, that's our fiscal year period, 2,426 compared to 2,522 for just this past year. Ken, could you be able to comment on the juvenile report?
I can. The first one you see there, domestic assault, is a duplicate of what I mentioned before. It was the assault that took place between siblings. The prosecutor's office denied the warrant recommendation because the complaining witness did not want to pursue the matter. And the other one is somewhat sensitive. It was the committal of a minor due to a mental illness situation, potential suicide.
And since we're on monthly training, I'll let you continue with that, please, Lieutenant.
All of our officers that are involved in a mutual aid team received their monthly training from SWAT to the hostage negotiation team and the dive team training. A majority of our sworn officers went through the recertification for TASER and for the pressure point control tactics. Our dispatchers went through quite a bit of training, especially dispatcher Linden, who is now up to par with all of her training for dispatch qualifications. I know we're going to be focusing, or we had started focusing in this month on fit testing for our respirators and our N95 masks. So that's going to be on the report for next month. And then Sergeant Carmack is continuing his leadership series training. Most of it is online, but he's dedicated to learning those qualities, what it takes to be a good leader.
And jumping into our animal control for the month of March, she received $2,117.10 in donations for that month. And she gave me a brief synopsis because she has some personal matters to attend to this evening. So she has 4 cats in the shelter right now. She wanted us to know that she has 3 new volunteers. They're implementing the COVID safety procedures for the volunteers and general public. She had a couple of complaints of interest that she wanted to bring to the commission's attention. The first one was that a municipal civil infraction was submitted for feeding of wildlife after multiple complaints and at least for 3 verbal attempts to get compliance. A lot of this is coming into that residents are feeding the deer, or they're utilizing bird feeders to feed the deer, or they're leaving food resources out so that the deer can feed off of them. We are trying to curtail that activity, one, because of the disease transmission, and then it's also bringing those animals into the residential areas in which we would like to keep them more into the open space areas. So she is doing enforcement on that. Another one that she wanted to mention was that an animal was brought in from another jurisdiction in Detroit from a Grosio resident. Long story short, the animal got loose. It was recovered by her. Julie ended up seeing the lost and found on a social networking website, and with cooperation with the resident that found that animal, they were able to reunite this dog with the owner in Detroit. So it was a breed of Huskies that this animal was from. And the found person in Grosio that found that animal, they were promised a new puppy whenever this animal has its next litter. So that's what they do, is breed those animals. And lastly, she wanted to bring out that she's currently working on a project with Michael Bates Chevrolet. Specific woman is Sandra Zanka, is doing a fundraiser called Raise the Wolf, and it will be held in the front of Hangar 1 in Grosio Township. She spoke with the manager, Mike Duker, at the airport, who checked the date and gave her the go-ahead. Michael Bates Chevrolet will be giving test drives to selected vehicles for donation. They'll have concessions and a silent auction table, also utilizing social distancing. This is slated right now for June 19th of this year. It's a Saturday, and she's still fine-tuning the details. So we're looking forward to her next fundraiser in cooperation with Michael Bates Chevrolet. Sergeant Carmack, if you're on, could you comment on the reserve report, please?
My video is not showing. One second.
Okay.
Hello, I'm in the back of the station here. For last month, we had 3 cadet hours worked, 56 reserve hours, which is more because the reserves are coming back in service. They're doing more neighborhood patrol, checking out. We had PPCT last month. The reserves all partook in that, and they also participated in the N95 mask fitting for the whole department did last month. We're having our meeting right now. That's why I'm at the station. We're preparing for being back in service, doing in-service training, and kind of shaking the rust off on going through the cruisers, getting ready for what we need to do for the rest of the reserve program. And then I talked before about we're going to make a reserve movie for recruiting. So anybody out there that's listening wants to apply for the reserves, we're now taking applications, and they're in the dispatch right now. And we'll have a recruiting movie started next month when the weather's better. On a side note, I think I talked about a couple of meetings ago that Cody Thigpen, one of our reserves, took a leave of absence. He's now back on duty as of today. And this doesn't really affect the department, but he used his time as a civilian, joined the reserve program, learned more about law enforcement, went into securities. And then now he has a new job where he went down to Alabama and he became a K-9 officer for the TSA as a third party. And he's a bomb dog for the airport. So this can show how a person can be a civilian, a volunteer, and then learn some stuff from us, transition to another career or even law enforcement. So it's kind of a success story for the reserve program. That's all I really have to offer for today.
Doug, what's the staffing level at right now with the reserves?
We are at 7 that have gone to the academies and are clear to go as a reserve, and we have 1 that's been waiting for over a year. The administration, we've signed him up twice and they've been canceled because of the COVID. So he's registered for the next reserve academy. I think it's July. I think it's when it was, but he's registered, ready to go. We have his equipment, and then I'm looking to get, so it's 8 with counting him, looking to get 2 or 3 more people.
So you're looking for 10 or 11 total.
We had talked about 10. That's what our number is, but I think because of maybe use another one, but 10 for sure, 10 total for sure. So it's not an easy process to go through to get these people. They go through a similar process that we use as the officers: background checks, interviews, oral boards, similar stuff. They go to an academy. They have to have certain qualifications, can't be a felon, stuff like that. So
Yeah, well, plus it's a pretty big time commitment.
it's 100% time commitment. And the community may not realize how much time and effort these men and women put in. It's men and women put into the volunteering for all these, the runs, the school events, Island Aglow on Christmas time, the elections, and then they're an extra set of eyes and ears outside for the department. They run into stuff. So.
Yeah, no, it's a great program, and glad to have the guys and men and women that we do right now.
Mr. Friel's been helping us out with getting people together to help us make this little movie for the recruiting funding and people to come film it for us. And we're going to start that next month. So.
And continuing on, just going into a self-initiated field activity, our officers just for the month of March, 24 citations, 37 notice to appears. So those are just citizen contacts where they were given a fix-it warning. Verbal warnings are up at 118 and 30 reports were completed. Mr. Longton had asked for a kind of an annual activity report for officers throughout year to year. Myself, the Lieutenant Pellin and Sergeant Carmack had a meeting in reference to our performance evaluations, and the self-initiated activity is a little deceiving because I don't want to broadcast data which would be somewhat skewed. And here's an example, is that somebody could do an activity, what's called a security notice, which is just making a notification of a resident that they have a vehicle that was found unlocked, or that there was mail that was accumulating that gave the appearance that their residence was unoccupied or they were on vacation. And so those can be completed within a matter of minutes. In contrast, is somebody does an OWI arrest, they could incur 3 to 4 hours of activity on that. So somebody could push out a significant amount of security notices, but then an officer would be putting 3 to 4 hours in one OWI arrest. So the numbers, if you compile them, are going to give an inaccurate portrayal of actually the performance of what that officer is doing. So in the revision that we're doing and some enhancements to our performance evaluations that we're wanting to do annually, we're going to try and come up with a concept that'll project the proper activity of an officer so that it's not going to give you a kind of a false narrative of what's actually taking place. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Scott, if you had any other questions or comments on that, but we're working on that, but I don't want to put out or broadcast some documents that would give an illusion of what really isn't there.
No, I appreciate that. I think that's extremely important that, the data that we're going to look at is accurate and really tells the story of what's going on behind the scenes. So I do appreciate that. Thank you.
So we will work on a solution for that. We've been bouncing some ideas around and we'll come up with some type of resolution. On our traffic summary for March, we had 2 hit and runs, which was a little bit of an increase. For the most part, our private property crashes have increased. So we had 5 for the month of March, and then car deer crashes were at 0. And comparing year to year, last March, we did not have any hit and runs. Property damage at 3, and we have a little bit more property damage going on for this year compared to the last.
For the hit and runs, I know it's unusual for us to get hit and runs. Were they on private property or just like in a parking lot, or were those actual issues where someone was hurt?
Lieutenant, I'll let you comment on that if you know the data. You're still muted, sir.
I'm sorry. So if my understanding is correct, both of those hit and runs were on private property in apartment complexes. So it was a vehicle that was parked, hit sometime overnight, simple backing into, no injuries or anything else like that. And even to go a little bit further, one of those may have occurred elsewhere. It's not uncommon for us to have somebody come into the station and say they're vehicle is hit in the Kroger parking lot and it probably occurred somewhere else. So sometimes it's just an insurance report we have to take on those.
Thanks.
The last thing I just wanted to comment on is that there was some conversation last month concerning notifying the Coast Guard and trying to get their cooperation with the Groseal Toll Bridge. I had an extensive conversation this morning with Mr. Smoke. Mr. Jarecki is looking for some avenues of assistance to make some type of resolution with the township to bring attention of the needs of the township to limit the bridge swings of the toll bridge during this emergency situation that I would say we have with a free bridge closure. And so we're working on that right now. We're assembling the data and then we're going to compile that information. Mr. Smoke asked for some speed signs that he put on the bridge. They've been instrumental is that those devices actually compile data. It's the same units that we use here in our traffic control. He's going to assemble that information. I will point out that with the speed signs that he has put on that bridge, he did indicate that before those signs were erected, that there was violations of speed and there was excessive speed, and those violations have decreased ever since the signs were in place. So we're looking for solutions to, during our peak hours, to be able to have the bridge not open up to recreational boater traffic, and so that we won't have the backups that we will exhibit throughout the year. And so we're trying to bring some resolution with the Coast Guard to implement these measures. Historically, Mr. Smoke has been approved of these temporary limits, and they were denied this year. The reason for the most part is that, as he indicated, more traffic is for or his swings have been for Wayne County Sheriffs and for the Border Patrol vessels that are traversing to get to their base in the Elizabeth Park Marina area. One impasse that we're having is that there are structures underneath the Groseal Free Bridge. There's a scaffolding that's prohibiting the distance from the water surface up to the clearance of the lower part of the bridge. That scaffolding, from my understanding, was supposed to only be either on the one side or the other, which would allow recreational passage of traffic. Excuse me. But there's scaffolding on both sides of that bridge right now. So it prohibits the allotment of vessels to go underneath because they're not meeting the clearance distances underneath that bridge. So we're trying to bring some resolution to that. And myself and Mr. Jarecki have been working on that. So did you have any comments on that, Mr. Jarecki?
Yeah, the only thing is, and so kind of the approach that we're taking is we only have the one bridge, and it's a real issue for residents. And so we're trying to identify, the rush hour periods that we would request them to have a restricted openings during that period of time. Certainly for a minimum of recreation boats. And so we're approaching it from a kind of a real inconvenience for the islanders. But the other thing is, Brent, and I sent a note to Russ Boudry as well. And I guess I'd like maybe you and him to chat a little bit about, what are some of the safety issues concerned with shutting down or opening the bridge, multiple times. I mean, how would that impede, emergency vehicles getting from the island to hospitals and things like that? And it would probably be good to know the typical elapsed time from when they stop people from crossing to the bridge until it's reopened again. If you have a line in to Mr. Smoke, I talked to Maureen, who I think is the manager there today, and hopefully, they'll give us their full cooperation. But I think maybe between you and Russ, if you could come up with some other reasons why, other than just convenience, that the emergency impact it has on our ability to deal with emergencies, when that bridge opens up. I mean, it's not like we have an alternative that you can drive 2 miles or 3 miles down the road and go off the free bridge, right? So, and maybe also, the boating season coincides with summer. And do we have more accidents in the summertime? Do we have more people having heart attacks cutting their lawns? I don't know the answer to that. But if you guys could also kind of approach it from that angle, I think that would be helpful. And us hopefully getting the Coast Guard to change their minds. We talked about it last Wednesday with Wayne County at our weekly bridge meeting, and they are certainly supportive of it. And Joe Palomera stated that if we were to pass a resolution here, he would attempt to pass a resolution also at Wayne County Commission level. And together, we would approach the Coast Guard, take it from there. So anything that kind of makes sense that supports our position. I mean, certainly you have to open that bridge from time to time, but we're in an emergency situation right now. And so we want to take reasonable and appropriate action and restrict the openings. So thank you for your help on that. And that's what we're doing. So thanks.
Good.
Yeah.
We pass a resolution imploring Wayne County to speed up the project.
Wish I had a magic wand.
Or maybe start the project.
Well, I'd give you a little update on that as well. When it's my turn.
Does anybody have any other questions on the monthly report before we go into the budget?
The only thing I was going to add, Scott, is we just recently received a word that we're going to have a grant renewed from the Downriver Guidance Center, where we'll monitor the alcohol and tobacco compliance checks for several Downriver communities. We've been doing that for about 5 or 6 years under the Safe Communities Grant. We take some of the proceeds and put it into a fund to pay for decoys or maybe use it for some other type of drug education. So that's going to start sometime next month. But it's just basically a renewal for us to lead that particular, the Downriver communities in that project.
Very good. Anything else, Ken?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right. I appreciate it. I had a few questions on the detective's report. With the animal complaint, I see it was just resolved with the assistance of Mr. Assorti. Do we know, was the kid okay, the 13-year-old?
He was. The injuries were minor. The bite, we believe, was inadvertent to the 13-year-old picking up his dog that was attacked. So we think the dog, nipped him in the process of trying to get to the dog.
Okay. All right. And then on the discharge of a firearm, was this an accidental discharge or is this somebody playing target practice and in the wrong area? What's going on with that?
That is more of a situation where there was some tomfoolery going on in the backyard of a residence, and the bullet went straight into an adjoining residential property.
Okay, so lucky somebody didn't get killed in that situation then.
Yes, I think the time of the discharge was when people would probably be asleep.
Okay.
So yeah, if that paints the picture a little bit better for you.
Yep. Was the gun confiscated?
No, the gun wasn't owned by the person who discharged it. It was owned by the father.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any other questions, Mike or Eric?
Oh, I'm good.
All right. Moving on with the liaison report then.
Okay. So one of my, weekly assignments is sitting in on the bridge meeting every week. And of course, everybody saw the video. A lot of people, from what I've heard, thought it was very helpful. Others desired a lot more information, so on and so forth. The impression I have is I believe Wayne County is being sincere and genuine in their efforts to get this thing fixed as quickly as possible. I think Mr. Palomera is certainly behind doing as much as he can to expedite the process. And the big problem right now is the issuance of permits. And they have talked to Congresswoman Dingell, was offered her help. So I think every tool available to us is being utilized right now in trying to get this thing going as quickly as possible. And that's just the impression that I have, my honest impression, sitting through these meetings and listening. People are being creative and so on and so forth. Obviously, I have a few differences as to additional things that we could be doing that I've talked about at past meetings. I believe we should still have our own engineer, because there may be some opportunities based on that type of feedback to end up with a better solution. But we unfortunately couldn't get enough votes to get that done. But it's not something that probably is going to fall to the wayside. It will probably be brought up again. Okay. In terms of the liaison report, last board meeting, couple important items I think that are worth mentioning. They recognize the passing of Timothy Walker. I think you all know that most people that follow these meetings, the police commission meetings, Tim and Kathy both were big participants of the police commission meetings, and often provided feedback and information, and also big supporters of the animal shelter. So great loss there. The other item that I thought was of real significance for the police commission is in the consent agenda. It was passed a motion where the management employee handbook will remove sections 10-17, police department management employees. This section is a section that provides for management to have similar benefits, I believe, as union members. And it's been there for, I think, quite some time. I personally, and I'm sure this is not going to be a popular statement with management, but it's something I really don't support. I think it's bad because I think it creates conflict between Row Road and Meridian Road, and having two different sets of benefits for management, township management. It almost creates this natural conflict, and us versus them. I'm certainly all for all management positions to be promotions, and that means total compensation should improve accordingly. But having two separate benefit plans for management teams in the same township, I don't think is a good idea. And but anyways, that was passed. And then I think we provide some recognition for Mr. Pellin and his 23rd year at the DARE program. Mr. Harden in the fine job that he did in responding to some gunshots, a lot of gunshots off island, his complex where he lives, and got involved and talked a individual out of either shooting someone or somebody getting hurt or getting himself killed. And he used the relationships that he had developed over time with a certain individual to his advantage, and did a great job and should be recognized for that. Last but not least, one of our newer members, Atlas, had his first test run. I guess you said, Brent, he didn't really succeed, but he did a really good job trying to track down.
He had good practice. It was just that the individual wasn't where everybody believes she was, and she had left already hours earlier. But it was good that we had an assist with another department, and it's exciting to utilize our resources throughout the community and the surrounding departments that need us.
So I think that's pretty much it for the liaison report. If anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to take them.
Eric, any questions?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. No questions. Just wanted to comment as far as for Miss Walker, Kathy Walker. Our heart and prayers go out to her and her family. It's unfortunate, and it's sad to hear that happened to Mr. Walker. And then as far as Lieutenant Pellin, thank you for your years of service that you continue to provide to our community. And Deputy Chief, I did read somewhere, I believe it was one of the emails that sent out, great job with that hostage situation. To my understanding, that was just a teenage kid in that situation, and or a young adult that was of some type of emotional distress going on in that situation. So I appreciate both of you and your services to these communities.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Moving on then, last but not least for reports, the budget report we haven't done yet.
Yep, you all should have copies. Just our amended budget was slated for $3,654,923, and the year-to-date balance as of March 31st is showing $3,687.93. And so we were, with the numbers that we're showing here, showing that we had a surplus of $54,835.07. So came in under budget for the fiscal year of 2020, 2021.
Very good.
Nice job. Good work.
With that, do I hear a motion to approve the monthly reports?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next issue on the agenda is the department updates as far as where we are at with the clerk dispatch eligibility list. So if somebody could let us know what's going on with that.
So we have one submission for retirement is a dispatcher. Her retirement date is projected for June 1st. We went out for applications and solicitations to fulfill her position upon her vacancy. We only had an initial 3 applications. There is another potential retirement from a dispatcher within the next 4 to 5 months after this retirement. And so we didn't feel that 3 was enough, nor did we feel that a pool of 3 was really significant. And if we do have enough candidates that are applying, then we could also put them on a waiting list, that those that would be selected as the second person, if they're capable, they could fulfill the next vacancy, which could happen thereabout in September. So having said that, we extended the application period until April 30th. So April 30th will be the deadline. right now we're up to 5 applications. So, and there's just approximately another week and a half left to be able to obtain additional apps. So that's where it stands right now. 5 applications received. The ending deadline is April 30th, and our most earliest retirement will be June 1st.
Okay.
So based on that, Brent, maybe we should go for another board approval to at least look for 2 applicants, right? Well, it may not be necessary. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I haven't received confirmation on the secondary retirement. It's just that's what's been projected to us, but there's nothing in writing or that's been acted upon. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse. But I just wanted to have a pool of candidates that, you know, we're not kind of redoing this every 2 to 3 months. I'd rather have us do the application process, you know, come up with 4 or 5 viable candidates, do the interview process, and then at least we would be able to select from the top 2 or 3.
Yeah, what do you think's a good number? You know, I mean,
25.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. And what is the interview process for that, for those candidates?
Well, Ken, you've done more of those than I have.
Yeah, so it's really up to the commission and the administration to go to develop what process we want to follow for a dispatch, because it's a civilian position. Typically, the commission is involved with at least one interview that involves the chief and deputy chief. The last person that we hired, Ms. McLendon, I think it was only Chief Warnick. That was the only person that did the interview. There's no set process for it. We can use what we want, but they still have to go through the background investigation. They still have to go through the psychological and the medical screening and so forth. So, but to answer the question, the interview can be dictated by the police commission.
Yeah.
So real quick, actually the last set of written, excuse me, tongue-tied. The last set of interviews, the commission was there. Ken, you and Deputy Chief were both unavailable on the evening that we did them. Chief Warnick was available for the initial interview, as well as the commission. Mr. Hubbard was not on the commission yet, I believe. So it was just me, Paul, and Eric, I believe, that did the interviews. And then I don't know if Chief Warnick did another interview after that or not. But from there, we made the recommendations after our interviews with the commission. And it was kind of like all the other interviews we've always done, more about experience, checking for personality conflicts, things of that nature.
Yeah. And we can choose the form that we want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think even before that, right? So I don't know if it was chief and deputy chief that had gone through and at least done the initial screening, right? So there wasn't, the police commission didn't see everybody, right? We saw the top candidates.
Yeah,
right.
That's correct.
And I would support that process. I mean, where we just get in at the final, what you pick a number, 3 or 4 candidates, or maybe the final 3. And then we would probably together, I would propose interview those candidates with the lieutenant and acting chief, whatever, two top people. And that would be it. I don't think we got to be in the screening process of, 25. I mean, I would just say the final interview, based upon whoever the management team recommends, right, as the final 3 candidates, I think is a good number. Is that everybody good with that? I mean,
I'm good with that.
Yes, Scott, I think that makes sense.
I'm good with that.
Right.
And actually, as you say that, that's what we did the last time. The commission only met with 3 of the applicants. So that worked out very well.
Yeah. And keeping in mind that the number 2 person could end up being the number 1 person a few months down the road. So if you want to extend it to 4, if you we find out by the time that we do this, or 5, knowing that we most likely we could high probability of filling 2 positions, I'd be okay with that. But bottom line is whatever you guys think, based upon where we're at when that process takes place. If it's now 2, then maybe you want to expand it a little bit more. If we know that that's going to happen. If it's only 1, then I think 3 is plenty. So we in agreement on that. You guys, Ruth, you got?
I was just going to say this is the 20th and it closes on the 30th. So I'll probably call and set up interviews that next week. So you guys might want to pick some dates. And do you want to interview 25 minutes?
You still have to do some of a screening process too, Ruth. You have to do at least some part of a background.
Right, but there's not that many, and usually we call and set it up first.
The number 1 sometimes becomes the number 2 or vice versa. I know that there was a few good candidates the last time that made it to the final round, and don't need an answer necessarily right now, but hopefully if the management team thinks that the number 2 or number 3 were good, that they would get an invite back.
Yeah, so once you guys get down to your finalist, then reach out to us and we'll talk days. And we'll try to get it done as quickly as possible. Okay. Is that good? We're all good? Scott, you good?
Aaron? I'm good with that. That works.
Yep. Sounds
okay,
good.
Good.
All right. Does anybody have anything else before we go into public comment? I'll take that as a no. So with that said, Mr. Carmazon, you are the only public person out there, so I don't mean to call you out, but it's easier to ask you.
Yeah,
do you have any comment?
Sure. Just one quick thing I'll add about the situation with the Coast Guard and the bridge. You might want to touch base with the Riverview Police Department about this issue too, because based on my past experience with the bridge, the company, which of course ended long ago, 2011. So I'm not speaking for the bridge company or any of their Mr. Smoke at this point, but I do know that during closure periods where you have that additional traffic in a rush hour situation, sometimes the traffic does back up onto the railroad tracks and on Sibley. Mm-hmm. And I know that's a big concern over in Riverview. Plus, they do have the bulk of the traffic problems that happen at the intersection of Jefferson and Bridge Road is where there, historically have been problems when the traffic is very high volume. So just a thought that Riverview Police Department might be a good ally in talking with or appealing to the Coast Guard to get some relief on the rush hours in the morning and afternoon.
Very good. All right. Much appreciated. Gentlemen, anything? I
would just say, Brent, would you handle that? Maybe
yes.
Reach out to them, because I'm really looking, that's good information and good support for what we want to get done. If it's another danger that we can identify, all the dangers to public safety, I think we want to identify in our, proposal to the Coast Guard.
Yeah, it's a great recommendation. We'll follow up.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. With that, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Very good, gentlemen. I'll be glad on the days when we're done with this Zoom thing, because this is annoying.
I can't wait.
All righty. Thank you all.
Everybody.
Good evening.
Everybody have a good night.